Alrighty. Hadn't made a video in a while, so I thought I'd make one. So, I'm wearing my Malcolm X glasses now. So, what I want to talk about. Hopefully I'm not very long on this, but I was watching a video of someone that was actually demonstrating the Luna software that basically came out for Windows, and it's free. So you know what that means. Ping! I'm going to download it because we all like things that are free. Of course, free, when the stuff is free, mean there's always, they hold back certain stuff so they can still make some money, which is fair. I get it. Now, what I want to talk, which brought me to my, which I want to get everyone's thoughts. Excuse me. Wow, excuse me. That big old yawn coming on. I want to get everyone's thoughts. That must be something psychological when it's late. Cause I don't be yawning. I don't yawn until I'm recording, which I don't know. I don't have something to do with, I don't know what it is. Anyhow, so brought me to what I wanted to do was get your input and your feedback, because this is what I'm seeing, and it does not look like it's going in the other direction. And that's kind of like a no-brainer. I'm gonna use this one analogy. And this analogy is, unfortunately, and when I use this analogy, I hope my older viewers, I'm talking subscribers, the ones that watch the channel, I hope you don't get offended by this, but this is actually the reality of it when it comes to advancing in the future. It's like a car. I can see if the people that are young, they could be in their 15s. They could be a kid, 10-year-old, 15-year-old, 20. What would impress young people about a car is when they hear how beefy the car sounds. I'm talking about a V8, 427 big block, 454, whatever the case, and they hear, coming down, whatever, island, driving down the street. That will most likely get the attention. But here's a big old but. But if you set a 69 Camaro with a 454 and you open the hood and it was just the basic 454 block with a big, just a carburetor, chrome valve covers, the typical stuff that most people do to their cars like that, those classic muscle cars. Open the interiors, got, the manual windows, the old school leather seats. It's basically an original type of condition. Now, if someone came and you could have that Camaro, and then someone will pull up next to that Camaro, and let's say it's a 2022 Camaro ZL1, right? This is kind of a no-brainer. Anyone young that sees a more modern design car like that is going to be more appealed to that 2022 ZL1. And that 2022 ZL1 will also have a beefy sounding exhaust, but it's going to definitely be more appealing. Now, someone who's driving the 69 Camaro versus someone who's driving the 2022. The 2022 could be someone older, but most likely someone mid-age, 30s, 40s, and very rarely a 20-year-old. But it could be someone as young as a 20-year-old driving a 2022. Rich bastard. No, let me stop. But anyhow, so let's say, but on average, it could be someone in about the same age. The reason why, if you set the two and the crowd, more younger people, mid-age people are going to be more drawn toward that newer Camaro, because that's how our brains operate. It's like using an old school rotary phone and then you have a modern smartphone. No one's going to pick up an old school rotary phone except for an old person. They might look at it and say, oh man, I remember those. That's a classic. But a young person's not going to say, they're not going to remember that. So it's not going to draw their attention. So what am I trying to say with this analogy, Mark, that's making this video? I'm saying it like this: whether it's a 2022's Camaro Z01, it could be a Dodge Charger Hellcat, a Mustang 2024 Mustang GT, or the car could be even if it is 10 years old. Or even 15 years old or whatever. It could be a 2004 Mustang Cobra, 20-year-old car. It's going to capture the attention of younger people a lot more than someone who's 65 driving a 64 and a half Mustang. And young people might, oh, that's in the car, but in their mind, they're still going to think that's an old car. And it's not, and we're talking the 60s, yet alone someone pull up in a 57 Bel Air. It just, only people that are older people are going to really captivate to a 57 Bel Air. It's just not going to capture the attention of young people, except for young people that are brought up around that are been enthused around classic muscles. Maybe their dad, grandpa had one when they were 5 years old, whatever, and they were around it, whatever. But most people, it's kind of like what we see today driving. When we see every day on the road that we're driving, we see the typical Kia Optimas, Kia Fortes, Hyundai Sonatas, Toyota Prius, Toyota, Yaris's, or SUVs. There are there are your typical, your late model Camaros, Mustang GTs out there, Dodge Charger RTs, the 2020 F-150 or 2018 Dodge Ram 1500 Laramie edition or whatever. That's the kind of stuff that we see on the road. That's just everywhere you go. You're going to see those, or you're going to see, some of the new Dodge, some modern Dodge Caravans out there, or some of the late model. We're talking 2015s, 2010s, maybe as old as in the early 2000s, 2004, 2005. You'll start to see, as cars get older, you'll start to see a lot less of those cars on the road. So the point that I'm making with this, in what I'm saying with that, is that it's the same concept of what studios were and what studios are today. And the software with DAWs it's kind of like if you watch my channel and if you are religious watching my channel, and I just did a studio update, I called it the upgrade/studio update. And I start off in my dining room with that kind of setup. It's just the interface, a controller, some speakers. I had a keyboard, very, very minimal setup. That is pretty much the most common studio setup, especially in home studios. Knowing and knowledge and knowing what to do and how to record, 99% of the time, it's going to come out great sounding. No one's going to be able to tell that you recorded it will sound no worse or no better than if someone went to a large format commercial studio. That's just how advanced we are. There are people that have commercial studios. There are people that still build commercial studios. There are thousands of people that still have consoles, racks of gear, and yeah, they're still going to have an interface. They're still going to use a DAW and some plugins, but they're still going to have quite a bit of outboard gear. I'm just saying that, believe it or not, it's reversed now. And we as older people, me including, because I'm in my 50s, we have to come to, and this is probably a message for older people, or people that's been in this game. They started on consoles, tape machines. We have to come into the realization that like for example, this console was a necessity 40 years ago. The console is an option now, because the console really is technically nothing but a bunch of preamp channel strips all in one. It's kind of like that rack of preamps right that I'm pointing to over here. These right here are preamp. Lots of them are channel strips, but they're mostly preamps. They're just the units or a console. It's the same things, like those with the EQs on them, or the channel strips with the EQ and the compressor. That's all a console is. It's just and instead of having a whole bunch of individual preamps, you had it in one unit called a Neve console, an SSL, an MCI, all these consoles. But this is the option now. Outboard gear is the option. All this outboard gear is an option because there's plugins. Plugins are software versions. Now, the only thing that's not an option is a computer, a place to record, an interface, and still things like microphones. There's no way to record. You got to have a microphone. But even synthesizers are options now because they're virtual instruments. The only thing, and even drums, because there's virtual instruments. There's virtual bass guitars. There's virtual guitars. Now, a virtual guitar being played with a virtual software guitar may not have the same effect, because the way a guitar is played is what makes it sound like it sounds. There's just no way around that. There's like, but there are virtual instruments like trumpets, trombones, tubas, saxophone, strings. And that stuff sounds today pretty much like the real thing. So, in conclusion, what I'm saying, and what I'm saying with this video is, and this is just the reality, and I've made a video like this before. We, especially as old people, that this setup it's mainly a preference way to record. There are going to be studio owners that tell you, no, this is the way you must record to get a pro level sound. And believe it or not, 20, 30 years ago, anyone that thought they could just be in the box, I would have thought they were in denial. You guys are crazy. Something's wrong with you. There's no way that you're going to get top-notch level, pro-level sound, industry sound, without having a console, without having outboard gear, without having preamps. And I'm going to tell you now, it's reversed now. Most of the people, and like I said, this is going to be a controversial, because there are always going to people that's going to be like, boo, Mark, I can't believe you're selling out to the in the box. And no, I didn't say I was selling out, because I love to record through. I'm never going to ever stop. I love the way the results come out this way. Because they come out that way, I'll never stop. But I'm just trying to get people to understand that if you think, and I'm going to have to, it look like I'm going to have to do some, it's like when people were calling Behringer stuff crap, and I made my sarcastic Behringer video, I think last year, a couple of years ago, about, when I used my Behringer and Cakewall software video, and I was doing my What You Won't Do for Love video to prove, yes, I'm going to have to do that with the that setup I had in my dining room. If you're an avid, a religious follower of my channel and saw that when I did my update video, that's what I was trying to explain what I was saying earlier about, you saw that was the setup that I started off in the tour. Now, there's always going to be some people that sit there and they will say, no, there's just, I've had people that sit there and say that, if you keep it in a box, it sounds like AM radio. There was a comment like that. I thought that was hilarious. There's some people who say it sound like digital sounds flat, but honestly, I'm going to have to basically, I'm going to have to act like I'm from Missouri. Missouri is considered the show me state. You're going to have to show me. That's going to have to be the reality of it, because there are lots of people that say, no, you cannot get the results like that without this gear. And that's controversial. It's subjective. I used to be hardcore thought like that. Trust me. I was wondering why people like Michael Brown that sold all his outboard gear. I'm like, I was looking at, he did a video on him selling all his outboard gear and then what he used to use. I'm like, I can't believe you're giving up all the outboard gear, because most people that were getting into this would dream to have the outboard gear that he was selling and getting rid of. And I'm like, and there are definitely pros and cons to outboard gear versus software. One of the pros to outboard gear is, one of the things you can't beat is the electronics that the signal's running through. Now, the con to outboard gear is you only got one of that unless you get more of that unit. Then that becomes, you get into space issues. I mean, there's a whole list of, whatever. With a plug-in in your software, you could put that same plug-in on 25 channels if you want. And the settings will sound totally different based on how you set the plug-in on each channel, compared to if you have one piece of outboard gear. Well, it can only be used once. You have to have multiple outboard gear to be used in multiple places. That's the con of it. Now, like I said, in conclusion of the video, you can put down in your thoughts, because honestly, definitely write some comments, because honestly, this is what I foresee. And it's inevitable. I have to be like Mr. Agent Smith. Hello, Mr. Anderson. It's inevitable. And it's the truth. It's just the studio today is basically your laptop, Mac or PC, software, plugins, interface, and controller, virtual instruments, studio monitors, headphones. That's the pro level recording studio, because software and DWs are just, and the interfaces are just that good today. So that's going to sum up the video. That's just the reality of it. Y'all have a great one, and we'll see you in the next one.